Ever get that feeling you're getting whiplash just from reading the news? One day the Fed is about to cut rates, the next day, no way. One expert tells you we're in a massive AI boom, another is screaming it's a bubble about to pop. It just feels chaotic. But what if I told you there's a hidden, kind of a structural reason for all this confusion among the experts? Well, let's get into it.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off by unpacking this really fascinating concept called research debris. We'll figure out what it is, see how it gets made, and then, and this is the fun part, we'll apply it to two of the biggest stories out there right now, the Federal Reserve's next move and, of course, the AI revolution. And then we'll wrap up by looking at a roadmap for how we can actually clean this whole mess up.
All right, first things first. What exactly is this stuff? Research debris. The term itself gives us a totally new lens to look through, a new way to understand a problem that honestly has been bugging us for decades.
Think of it like this. Imagine all this unused academic knowledge is like an old satellite. It did its job, it collected valuable data, but now it's just stuck up there, floating around in intellectual orbit. It's this huge body of work, absolutely full of potential, but it's just drifting, not making the impact on Earth that it was supposed to.
And this debris doesn't just pile up by accident. Nope. It's the direct result of a major disconnect between two very different groups of people who think in completely different ways.
So on one side, you've got the academic world. They are all about one thing: rigor. Their goal is to spend years, sometimes decades, developing these perfect, abstract theories to get into prestigious journals. And what's the reward? Tenure? More publications? But on the other side, you have the practitioners. We're talking CEOs, investors, policymakers. They live and die by relevance. They need solutions that are timely, specific, and solve a problem that's on fire right now. Their reward? Simple. Results. These two thought worlds, they don't just speak different languages. They operate on different timelines with different goals. It creates this great divide.
Okay, so this all sounds a little academic, right? So how does this abstract idea actually play out in the real world? Let's take a look at our first case study, the U.S. Federal Reserve. This is where this clash of logic happens on a global stage.
This quote from the economist Mohamed El-Erian just absolutely nails the problem. What he's saying is that the Fed is stuck using the academic world's logic, this rigorous, historical, backward-looking data.
And here's the core of the dilemma, right? The Fed, they want to be data-dependent. It sounds so responsible, so rigorous. But what happens when the data itself is sending you mixed signals? The labor market seems to be cooling down, but hey, costs are still going up. This is exactly when the practitioners start yelling, "Stop looking in the rearview mirror. We need some forward-looking strategic judgment here." And the result? You get a Fed that's trapped in this muddled middle, creating huge uncertainty for markets, for businesses, for you and me. It's a classic policy trap, and it's caused by research debris.
All right, let's switch gears and look at our second case study, one that's moving at light speed, the AI boom. Now, here the problem isn't a lack of information, it's that we're drowning in it.
This is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Is this a genuine technological revolution, or are we just watching a replay of the dot-com bubble from the late 90s? And the answer, at least according to economists El-Erian and Nobel laureate Mike Spence, is, well, it's kind of both. They argue we are in a rational bubble. Now that sounds like a total contradiction, but it perfectly captures just how complex this situation really is. So what on earth does a rational bubble even look like? Well, first you have the frontier of innovation. It makes perfect sense to throw a ton of money at a bunch of these AI companies knowing that most are going to fail, because the few that actually win are going to be absolute giants. Then you've got this thing called the diffusion gap. This is the huge, often ignored challenge of getting amazing new tech out of the lab and into the average workplace. And finally, you have the simple power of a label. Just like adding .com to your company's name back in 1999, just slapping AI on your pitch deck today can open the floodgates of investment, whether you deserve it or not. And this right here, this chaos, it's a textbook symptom of research debris. We have a massive information processing gap. All the data, all the research, it's out there. But the field is moving so incredibly fast and it's so complex that investors, the practitioners, they just can't translate it all into clear decisions. That valuable academic knowledge is floating around, but it's not in a form they can actually use right now.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We see how this debris is causing all sorts of trouble. Now for the good part. What can we actually do about it? The good news is there are some really concrete solutions for bridging this gap between the two worlds.
It really boils down to a three-step process. First, we just have to completely rethink the relationship. Get rid of this old idea that one group makes knowledge and the other just consumes it. Then we need to create totally new roles and models that actually let them work together. And finally, we've got to adopt new ways of collaborating. The whole goal is to turn this one-way street of information into a collaborative superhighway, where ideas are flowing freely in both directions.
So what does that actually look like? Well, imagine something called deep partnering, where a researcher literally spends a year embedded inside a company to really get their problems. Or picture knowledge brokers, people whose entire job is to be a translator, taking complex academic papers and turning them into actionable strategies. And then there's interactive research, where from day one the academics and the practitioners are in the trenches together, co-creating knowledge and solving real problems at the same time.
Ultimately, what this all comes down to is a massive change in mindset. Too often, academics are seen as talking at or even talking down to practitioners. The solution requires a profound shift, to where they start talking with them. This isn't just about being nice, it's about building a real partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals.
And that brings us to what might be the single most powerful, most actionable idea in this entire explainer. What if, instead of ending every research paper with that dry, boring limitation section, we required a pathways to impact section? A section that literally forces the researcher to think about and spell out exactly how their work can be used in the real world, to stop it from becoming more useless debris. Seriously, the power of this simple change is huge. It completely reframes the entire purpose of doing research in the first place. It makes relevance a core part of the structure, not an afterthought. It forces that researcher to start building a bridge to the practitioner's world from day one. It becomes a built-in prevention system for research debris.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Just imagine a world where this was the new standard. What if every single time an expert or a researcher or a policymaker presented their findings, they also had to explain how that knowledge could actually be used? It might just clear up a whole lot of that confusion we started with, don't you think?
If you found this useful, hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explainers that break down the big ideas shaping our world. Thanks for watching.